Hi, I'm Virginie Lakins from Roland Designs, and today I wanted to show you the oldest sampler in my collection. I actually have two samplers from the 1700s, but this one here is the oldest. This one here is an American sampler dated 1748, and as you can see it is very darkened with age and the colors are quite faded. If you turn it around, you can see a little bit more how the colors would have been. The most predominant colors are blue and green. They're the ones that seem to have lasted the longest. And the sampler is very delicate, so I won't be handling it too much. If you think back about the date 1748, you have to take into consideration that 277 years ago there was no presidents in the United States, and George Washington was actually only 16 years old when this sampler was stitched. He was born in 1732, so this actually puts into perspective a bit the age of this particular sampler. Now in 2011 I stitched a reproduction of it for the Gift of Stitching, cross-stitch digital magazine from Australia. And this is my reproduction of it stitched in silk. As you can see, it is a little bit smaller and narrower than the original, and that is because the original sampler was stitched over 3 threads when we usually do cross-stitch over 2 threads only. And this one here was stitched on 32 count linen and silk threads. And I tried to keep it as original as possible, but had to fix a few errors where things were not lined up perfectly on the original one from 1748. I was actually a little bit, not concerned, but just a little curious about whether or not it truly was as old as it is. As, of course, it is very rare to have textiles this old, especially available for purchase for the public. And I did a little research online, and I saw that the Smithsonian Museum in the United States has several American samplers also from 1730s. And what was interesting was to see that their oldest sampler, which is from 1735, was very similar to the one I have, a band sampler with similar alphabets, also with the letters J and U missing, which would be quite accurate for the time period. And some of the bands were quite similar to this one, so I'm pretty sure that it is actually from the 1700s. It being an American sampler, it makes it also a little bit special, because you have to think about the situation in the States in those days was before the War of Independence, and it was probably stitched by a young girl. It is quite fine work, but there are mistakes where the stitches cross a little bit differently. So it could have been probably a wealthy girl who had a governess who would have taught her to embroider and to stitch. And it is quite fine linen it's stitched on, so it would have been quite a good work for a young girl working it in probably either natural daylight or by candlelight or lamplight. So it is quite a special piece, and I keep it very safe, and I will of course not be framing it or hanging it up for display in the sunlight because of its age and its nature. Now I know when I show samplers on my videos, I usually get comments later from people who ask me why I handle these antique samplers without gloves. And the reason is that the fingers actually have more feeling and dexterity than gloved fingers. So a lot of museums actually do the same thing, where they don't handle ancient textiles or papers with gloved fingers, because you're more likely to damage it. The fibers are quite delicate, and just a little bit of friction the wrong way could crack them. So this one I keep on a white pillowcase to keep it safe. And yes, I do use my hands, but they are clean and I have no cream on them. I have washed them before touching it. So if there's any questions about it, this is the reason why I don't use gloves to protect these ancient textiles. It is the safest way. Now, why do I work on charting these antique samplers and patterns. It's so that people can do reproductions of them, and the reason for it is because it's a way of preserving our needlework heritage. As time goes by, there are less and less of these antique samplers and needlework and worked pieces available, and they get damaged with time. So it is a way to preserve the alphabets, the motifs, the little bands, the little designs, and people can stitch their own version, and in a way they are continuing a tradition that has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And who knows, if these originals become less common or get damaged, you will still have a lot of people that will have had copies or digital copies available. So it is a bit of a labor of love for preserving the work of people that are long gone. And sadly, I don't have on the sampler any information as to its provenance. There are some initials, but it is not enough to give a clue as to where it came from or who stitched it. But if you have any information or recognize some of the patterns, because often people would use patterns over and over again, and I thought these little people here were quite interesting with the clothing choice and the style. So if you have any information about American samplers and can give me a clue as to where you think it was stitched, do let me know and send me a message. I would love to hear from you.